Soccer.
Hi, everybody. This is Greg Suddy on Soccer. I am here with Empire Strykers head coach Paul Wright. And this has been an exciting time for Paul coming in, I'm sure, as the new head coach for the Strykers. Paul, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
So what we're going to do, and I'd like to just sort of paint this a little bit. Obviously, everybody, the reason why we're here to talk with Paul is what's going on up at Empire Strykers, what's he got planned, as much as he can talk about it. Who's he bringing in? If he can talk about that, both coaches and players, whatever he can talk about and share with us about that. But before we get there, sticking with the platform that I generally go with, we're going to talk a little bit about what Paul's career has been, and it's impressive. But first, Paul, I know your own organization is Speed to Burn. Talk a little bit about Speed to Burn, when it got started, what you've been doing with it, to where it's taken you in the professional athletic areas.
Okay, yeah, I started Speed to Burn probably back in 2000. I was in Baltimore, Maryland, and in my spare time, I would go to the gym a lot and work out a lot in the gym, and I started putting programs together for my teammates, and I started doing the preseason for the Blast and kind of getting them ready, and someone in the Baltimore Ravens organization, strength and conditioning, got wind of it, and they wanted to kind of see what I was doing with these obviously professional indoor players, and they kind of liked what they saw, and they brought me in and kind of taught me what they do on the NFL level. And that was kind of the spark for me to kind of realize, yeah, I can kind of do this as a job. So yeah, things kind of fizzled for me, but then on the way to San Diego, I figured, yeah, why don't I have get started with Speed to Burn, and that's what I was calling it. Ron Newman always said, he would quote in the papers and said Paul Wright had Speed to Burn, so that always stuck in my head, and so that was obviously a good name that I wanted to call the company. So it came out to San Diego, and Brian Quinn was the head coach at the time, and he allowed me to kind of help get the word out and so on and so forth while I was playing. And yeah, I think 20 something years later, it's kind of grown into something bigger than I thought it would grow into. So yeah, very proud of what it's become.
What are there any athletes across whatever sport out there that the viewers might know by name that you've worked with?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm actually waiting for 1 o'clock to come around so I could watch Casey Toohill with the Washington Commanders. He's one of my projects that I've had since I think eighth grade or so. I think we started with him, and so yeah, he's a defensive end of the Washington Commanders. I think they're playing the Broncos today, so looking forward. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with La Liga and Celta Viga. Luca Della Torre also represents the national team, U.S. national team. He's playing over in Celta Viga. Obviously, started with him since a very young age. Caterina Macario,
Wow.
Chelsea at the moment. Another one of my athletes I've worked with such a young age. I think I point out those in particular because those have been very helpful in helping me get my nonprofit Matters Athletic up. So yeah, I can go down the list, but I think probably those three are probably the top three.
Well, that's outstanding, and yeah, absolutely. Those are names. Those are names that most of us would know for sure. All right, so let's go a little bit. Let's backtrack a little bit. Very briefly, for those that don't know, Paul is a prodigy, not a prodigy, is a result of some English history. You were actually born in England. That was in 1969, if you don't mind me dating you. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. Yep, London, England, Queen's Park. Spent the first 10 years of my life there in the cold, but playing football on a regular basis. So yeah, that was where I definitely got to start and had the love for the game. That's basically where it started.
So I just put up a comment that came in. It's a little long winded, and I just want to remind the viewers, this is a simulcast on a triple simulcast on Facebook, Study on Soccer, on MASL Off the Wall, and also on Study on Soccer YouTube. For those of you that are watching and want to be in the chat, MASL Off the Wall does not identify who the user is. It simply says Facebook user. If you want your name to be in the chat, you need to go to Study on Soccer on Facebook or Study on Soccer on YouTube, and then in the chat, your name will be identified, and we can share this. I can see this once the thing is posted. I'll know who this is. But as it is right now, if you're on MASL Off the Wall, it might be helpful if you type in your name before you make the comment, and that way we can know who you are. So, did you read that, Paul?
Could you read that for me? It's very small on my print.
It's okay. It says, "Hi, Paul. The best thing that happened for the Strikers. Love him. He is right on with his direction on where the team will go. We had many conversations about it all. Cannot wait for the first game, December 15th, Paul. I believe in you, but you already know that. Proud to call you friend." So clearly, this is somebody who knows you. It's Robert Amico. That's from Robert Amico.
Okay. Yeah, I
Okay.
think from the fans and the organization in Ontario, the Empire has been beyond my belief. It's they've really kind of got behind me and the mission and what I'm trying to do here, and just really buying into what I want to do here with this club. So I definitely appreciate all the support I'm getting from the Empire.
So what brought you to San Diego? What was the first thing that brought you into the San Diego area when you came to the United States?
That would be my mom getting a job at San Diego State. Before that,
Okay.
we were Inglewood, Inglewood, California. We've been in Modesto, and then job at San Diego State, and so off to San Diego we went. And I believe I was at Grossmont High School and continued my soccer journey there. And got scouted by the assistant coach of the San Diego Sockers, Johan Arnio, at the time. And they brought me and
Right.
Renee in as I think what we called them at the time. I think they're called Project 40s now, where we would have education paid for and a salary, and we'd practice with the first team, and work our way up to the big stage, as they called it.
And Renee, you're mentioning that's Renee Ortiz. You guys were both brought in at the same time, weren't you?
Yeah, we were. We didn't know each other before that. I guess we did, but we became really close in those first couple of years. Coming, obviously, being, 17 and 18 years old at the time,
Right.
and being around all these legends, and we were a little starstruck at first, and I think it was a great lesson for us. I think our learning curve definitely was a lot quicker being around those type of players. So yeah, I think we owe a lot our career to that start that we had there.
And that's for those that don't know who we're talking about for sure. Yes, in fact, that is the Renee Ortiz that you are thinking of. That's the current assistant coach for the San Diego Sockers, and also the head coach for the Mexican men's national team for World Mini Football. So going forward, so you end up, the first thing on the list I have as far as your pro career, Paul, was the San Diego Nomads. Now that was a Western Soccer League or something like that. Western Soccer Alliance.
Yeah, that was Derek Armstrong. I think our Nomads club team, we were very good, and I think that Derek.
I remember them.
really wanted to take it to another level. But we obviously had some guys that were obviously not in college, and I think I was still in high school at the time, and so we were billed as a semi-pro team playing with pros. So yeah, that was my first dip into the pro world, and I remember we played Hearts of Scotland. Hearts of Scotland came over, and we played them, so that was a big deal. I remember getting a hat trick in that game, so that kind of set me off to really believing that I could play against pros.
So interestingly, now I didn't know this. I thought that you went directly from the San Diego Nomads to the San Diego Sockers, but apparently you had a year with the Cleveland Crunch.
So yeah, this is where it gets a little tricky. So the first year I was with the San Diego Sockers. At the end of the season, they had an expansion draft for the Cleveland Crunch, and we could only protect, I think it was 8 players, and everyone else they could pick from. I was left unavailable. There was a lot of talent on our team: Bronco, Quinny. Kevin Crow, you just go down the list. And Ron, he explained to me that they wouldn't pick me up because I was so young and I was inexperienced, and so on and so forth. So he didn't really believe that they were going to take I think I was 18, 19 at the time, a risk on a player like that. And sure enough, they did. And so that was my first taste of professional soccer, where you don't really have a say when you get traded. And so yeah, off to Cleveland, playing with I think it was Hector Marinero, Bernie James, and some of those great guys. And Zoran Carrick he came up with us here in San Diego, and I remember about halfway through the season, getting a call from my agent saying that San Diego wants to trade Zoran Carrick for you. And I was like, okay, go. So I was back in San Diego. So I spent about half of the season in Cleveland. So that's where Cleveland
Okay.
record.
Okay. And you did play. You played like 100 games for San Diego. You were there for a couple of seasons. Went on and did some time with the Milwaukee Wave. That was a relatively short stay with the Milwaukee Wave. And then you went back outdoors with the Los Angeles Salsa.
Yeah. So yeah, after I think the league had folded, and so I went back to England to play for Luton Town. Derek Armstrong was very instrumental in getting me over there, and so went back to my roots, playing at Luton Town. MLS was around the corner,
Right,
and
right.
again, I wasn't really fitting into the cold weather. So yeah, I was anxious to get back to the United States and play in the MLS. So I think there was about a 3 month, 4 month period that I was back, that Victor Noguera and Keith Tozer kind of talked me into going to Milwaukee and playing and just kind of staying sharp for that season. So yeah, that's the time I spent there in Milwaukee.
The Baltimore Blast got to look at you for about what looks like a season, maybe a season and a half.
Uh,
And is that right?
I had 2 tours in Baltimore. There was
Right. The
Baltimore.
first one was in 1993.
Yes, yes, 1993. I think it was. I really enjoyed Baltimore and the players and the city, everything about it, the organization. So yeah, I spent some time there with the Spirit. I think at that age, I was really kind of mentoring some of these younger guys, and so yeah, we had a good run in Baltimore. But then, yeah, I'm not sure.
Interesting.
Tell me what. I'm not sure what. I'm not sure from that Spirit
So
what.
you've mentioned
Sorry, go ahead, Greg.
you've mentioned 2 times you've mentioned 2 times about the weather in London, that you didn't agree with the weather in London. How did you agree with the weather in Baltimore?
Uh, it was tough, but it's when you're playing indoor because you're in the arena, you're practicing the arena, and so yeah, it wasn't as bad. When it was just the playing aspect of being outside was tough for me.
Gotcha. So you go to the Wichita Wings. You play a little bit with the Wichita Wings. And the thing that's sort of interesting to me is then you signed with the Sacramento Knights of the CISL. So now you're doing a tour of a whole bunch. I mean, your career at this point has taken you to a whole bunch of different leagues.
Yeah, and so at that point in my career, I was, for the lack of a better word, just going to the highest bidder. So if it was in Wichita, if it was in
Okay.
Sacramento, wherever the highest bidder was, that's who had my services at that time.
So what's really cool is now a whole new era takes place because now the MLS is playing and you get picked up by the Kansas City Wizards and you get reunited with Ron Newman and one of your teammates is Sean Bowers. So this is a pretty interesting time in your career, is it not?
Yeah, no, it's great to get the outdoor game. That's the game I fell in love with from the beginning, and to be with Ron and Guy again, it was really cool. And we brought some like legends of the indoor game, Preki, and some other players. So it was a very familiar atmosphere for me, and I really enjoyed being part of the MLS for the first, I think it was the first 4 seasons.
Yes, indeed. Another stint in Baltimore that didn't last a very long time. I'm passing over the Philadelphia Kicks because my note says that you played the Philadelphia Kicks on loan, and there were only seven appearances, so I sort of skipped over that one. But
Yeah,
back to go ahead.
yeah. Put on a Philadelphia Kicks uniform. I think that was a trade or something that they had to do to make the numbers work. But
Oh,
or maybe quite sure, but I never actually put a uniform on for the Philadelphia Kicks.
but the first, but just prior to that, this was a pretty lengthy stay in Baltimore. You have 124 appearances over what 4 seasons.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a really good stay in Baltimore. Like I said, I really enjoyed the city. Didn't mind it at all. So yeah, I was always up for re-signing in Baltimore and trying to win a championship there.
Yeah, no kidding. And I mean, an epic organization to begin with, anyway, right? I mean, they always have been.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so then the second iteration of the San Diego Sockers takes place. You got Brian Quinn as coach. You come in and you start playing for the San Diego Sockers with Brian Quinn as coach. Um, Respectable team, good team. Didn't get to that championship run except for losing. I believe they lost at one point to the Dallas Sidekicks. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, that was a tough run. I don't think we had the right chemistry on the team, the right camaraderie. I think there was a lot of different factors and fractions on the team, and I think it was really hard for Brian Quinn at the time to really get everyone playing as a unit. And there was just I would
Mm.
say a lot of dis on the team at that point. And so yeah, there it wasn't a recipe for success.
Well, he sure seems to be doing pretty good at San Diego, at the University of San Diego now. He's got a pretty good organization going on up there, and I'm really stoked for Brian Quinn here, still coaching locally for the University of San Diego as their head coach. So now, did you actually retire after that run with the San Diego Sockers?
Yes,
Because I
so
mean, you have more play coming up.
yeah, no, I think that was my actually third retirement. I'm not sure. I retired a couple of times, but I think that was my third. But that was supposed to be the official one. Uh, so yeah, yeah, we had I had a great run, and that's when Speed to Burn really started to take off, and I really wanted to invest in my future and what I was going to be doing after soccer. So yeah, I retired after that, and yeah, I remember a few years later um, getting a call from Nate Hetherington and asking me to have a meeting with him and Phil Savaggio. And yeah, had a meeting with them, and they convinced me to come out of retirement and help mold these young guys and help lead this new generation of soccers. And when they said the names and they said where they were from and so on and so forth, Anthony Medina, Craig Childs, and go on and on. But those names really kind of resonated, and I really wanted to help groom those young guys, and show them what it was like to be a champion.
But you actually played for the Fusion first.
No, I was with San Diego, and then we won, I think, 2 championships. Oh,
Was it the
Fusion.
San Diego Fusion? Wasn't
Yeah,
that wasn't that something that was instrumental in getting things going with the Soccers?
yeah, I think so. I think Alex Monar was definitely instrumental in putting that together, and yeah, I believe that's where the new Soccers were born from.
That's outstanding. What a great story that whole thing is. I mean, and one of the things I loved about that team was how local they were. I went down the roster, I think it was the second year they were in operation, and I go down that roster, and I mean, there were a couple of guys that weren't from San Diego or Tijuana, but not very many. I mean,
Yeah,
it was a homegrown team, and seeing you come back was, I'm not kidding. I know this is going to sound kind of goofy, but my heart fluttered, brother. When I saw that you were coming back on the team, I'm kind of going, are you kidding me? This guy is going to mold these players, and he's going to mentor these players and come full circle in his career, as far as, helping out the organizations here in San Diego, and how much so many people around the league, Paul. I mean, so many people around the league love you, but so many people in San Diego just absolutely adore you, buddy. I mean, how often we've seen you, especially the old guys like me that have been around and watching you play and coming up and watching your entire career. It's really been a blessing.
it's definitely come full circle now. Uh, Getting into the coaching arena. But yeah, I had a ton of fun. I enjoyed it. I think I got everything out of it. Played as long as I possibly could. Had some successes. So yeah, I definitely look back on it with definitely a lot of joy.
But before that's over, but before the story is quite over, you do a season with the Anaheim Bolts, and then come back and play again for the San Diego Sockers. And I have a very fond memory of one game in San Diego where Paul Wright comes out for his team, now the Anaheim Bolts, and you're pumping your fists in the air, shouting to the crowd, "This is my house."
Yeah. So, yeah, I thought I did a decent job in molding these guys, and we won a couple of championships. But I think that at that point, I would always, Ron would always say, "We're ambassadors for the league. We're ambassadors for the game," and the indoor game is growing, but we didn't have any rivalries like we did back in the day with Baltimore and San Diego and
Right.
Milwaukee. And so I wanted to create that rivalry and go into and try to put them on my back and just stir up the crowd, stir up the league. And so
Well
yeah,
done.
I think now, I look back on it now, and I think it's a great rivalry that we have down the road now with and now I'm
Oh yes.
back side of the fence. So no, it's been great. I've really enjoyed just trying to be an ambassador, like Ron said, for the league.
How many championship rings do you wear? I know the answer, but share it with us.
Well, I don't wear any of them, only on special occasions. But I have a total of 7 in my safe that I will pull out from time to time.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Pretty amazing, my friend. And what an outstanding career. Thanks for sharing that with us. Let's get to what's going on in the current day. Um, Shortly after your announcement to be the head coach of the Empire Strykers, as I mentioned earlier, I had an opportunity to talk with you a little bit up at the King's Cup, sit next to you a little bit when I was on the broadcast, and it's always a pleasure to hang out with you on any level. And then your team in Ontario for the USA Mexico game really pulled out a gut check win. That was an outstanding match. It was an outstanding day all around. A great crowd. Paul Dougherty's team played well against the Mexican ladies. Both sides on both games, well, both teams, all four teams played really, really well. It was, from a fan's perspective, it was an outstanding day. And I have to assume that from the coach's perspective, it was not a bad day either.
No, that was a great first experience. Uh, Coaching, and I said, I wish all the games I coached I had all stars. It was just a fantastic group of guys that we put together for that. Nick Pereira on down, and so yeah, it was just kind of about managing. When you have that many good players, it was about managing the game and leading when I needed to lead, and calming everyone down when we needed to be calmed down. And yeah, it was really good to get my feet wet. A great Mexican team. Like I said, it
Yes.
wasn't an easy, it was definitely a challenging game, and it was a gut check type of game. So yeah, I'm really proud of the guys, how they stepped up and wore the crest and represented USA well.
So I'm usually of the mindset, and I've mentioned this before in public and publicly. I'm generally of the mindset that when you take a team, a quality team roster, guys that know each other, that have team chemistry, that have played together for a while. In fact, especially a team that has a championship ring from their very most recent season, and you put that team on the field against a bunch of all stars. Now, this is where my analogy kind of falls apart, because in your case at that game, this bunch of all stars I'm talking about aren't really a bunch of all stars that don't know each other. These guys all know each other. They've played together. They've played against each other. So it's not a bunch of super talented guys that don't have any chemistry. So there was a chemistry that was there on the U.S. team that normally may not be there on a typical all star team. But I was really pleasantly surprised that the United States was able to win that game, because I honestly expected the Mexican team, which was essentially the Chihuahua Savage, and
Yeah.
have that recent championship, all know each other. So to your credit, you're saying managing was the deal. To your credit, it was an outstanding job from the bench. It really was, and it was a great game.
Yeah, I think we were a little bit worried. Well, the staff was a little bit worried, but after we had that first morning practice, you could really see the chemistry starting to come out, and the camaraderie, and it was just really, it's like these guys had played together for years, and they were just happy to get back together. So the energy in the arena from the morning practice was just different. You could just tell it was just different, and so we took that into the game. And like I said, wasn't much on my part, but yeah, all the credit to the players. They did fantastic.
All right. So, is there anything that you can share with us about what to expect, what's coming? Anything you're doing with the roster? Can you talk about your coaching staff yet? Is there anything that you can share about what's coming forward from the Empire Strikers, directly related to head coach Paul Wright?
Well, yeah, I think the talks I've had with Jimmy and the ownership is I really want to get younger. I'd like to get more athletic, and I really want to get up and down the field and be more of a running type of team. So so we're going to be making some adjustments in our roster to accommodate that. But yeah, we've been taking our time, figuring out the right moves and things like that. But we've got a talented roster, but obviously they haven't made the playoffs for the last 2 years. So we're going to have to make some adjustments and improve the team and bring some more talent in. So we've got some announcements to make this upcoming week with the roster. But yeah, I guess I can give you a one tip, because this is San Diego. People would love to hear this. But yeah, I'm going to be bringing Paul Dougherty. Paul Dougherty is going to be my assistant coach. So there's a little tidbit for you.
Wow. Wow, that's exciting. I noticed during, again, just to rewind a little bit to the USA Mexico match, Paul was coaching the USA women's team, And I did notice that Paul Wright was spending a little bit of time on that coaching bench, standing next to Paul Dougherty during that women's game. I noticed that you were, I don't know what you were whispering in his ear, but I noticed that there was some relationship going on right there during that women's match up in Ontario.
Yeah, Paul and I have been close for many years. Obviously, we played together for many years with the Sockers, and we've remained close over the years. And I've watched what he's been doing, outside of the game, and vice versa. And yeah, when the opportunity arose, we've had many conversations. And I don't know if you noticed, he was on the bench for me with the U.S. team, and I really wanted to kind of start to get our feet wet. And I really trust his knowledge in the game, and he's just a great person. And yeah, I think that he's really he's really passionate about the game and also growing the game. So
Absolutely.
it's I think it's just it's a really good fit for us. And he's a really good teacher also.
Well, that's really exciting. That's really exciting news to hear that. Um, so I want to ask you, do you know if at this point, and because we're only like 6 weeks away, maybe 5 weeks away from the World Mini Football World Cup in Dubai, um, do you have anything going on with that? Do you have anything to say about that? Do you have any players maybe from the Empire Strikers that you know are going to be there? Do you have any comment about that competition?
Um, Not so much. I really, Greg, to be honest with you, I really got my hands full with this roster and remaking this roster, and so on and so forth. So I think I may have a player or two that may be going to that, but I do know they'll be back by training camp if they do go. But I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm trying to get my singular focus on here and really try to put the best team I can put out there for this season coming up. So yeah, I'm not so versed in what's going on with the futsal and all that stuff.
So, you mentioned a few minutes ago. You mentioned that the Strikers had not gotten to the playoffs the last couple of years, and not only, I don't mean to bring up bad memories, but not only um, did they not make it, but in both cases, the way they didn't make it was both surprising and heartbreaking from the standpoint of the franchise, because earlier, somewhat early in the season, it looked like in both seasons, it looked like they were on their way. Nothing was going to stop them. They had it. They had it in the bag. They needed 1 point or two in order to get to secure, ultimately in order to secure that playoff spot. And the last end of the season games, just they would lose and then lose again and then lose again and then not make the playoffs by essentially one win. Um, do you have any? I mean, you weren't involved with the team at that time, but you were. I'm sure you were watching it happen. Do you know what that was? How that happened? Why that was? And what you're going to be able to do to make that not happen again?
Those are great questions, Greg. uh, um, not sure what happened, and but I guess my philosophy and Jimmy's philosophy, we've talked a lot about last year history, the last 2 years. It's all behind us, and we have to start with a new slate, and we have to start with a clean slate moving forward. So whatever's happened in the past, that's in the past. I think over the years here, I think a lot of things continue to fester from years past, and they may be rearing their ugly head at the end of the seasons. I'm not really sure, but I do know that it's a new
Mm.
era, and those type of things I just don't anticipate happening now. There was obviously going to be a change in culture. There's going to be a big change in the roster, and so yeah, we're going to have a different look than what we've had in the past. So yeah, whatever happened in the past, that's all in the past. It's a new era, and we're moving forward, putting together a championship team.
You mentioned the rivalry between the San Diego Sockers and the Empire Strikers. Oftentimes, this is sort of a philosophical statement. oftentimes the term rivalry, unless there's been multiple exchanges of wins and losses equally to both directions, usually one would argue that the term rival comes from the team that hasn't won as many times as the other. For instance, the Dodgers don't necessarily see the Padres as a rival, but the Padres see the Dodgers as a rival. Because obviously the Dodgers, right? You see what I'm saying? What I'm talking about there? Now, the point I want to make is, when the Ontario Fury first started using the term rivalry with the San Diego Sockers, a lot of the Sockers fans kind of laughed. It's kind of like, what rivalry? Well, now that's just not the case. The Empire Strykers have showed themselves to be a side that can play the Sockers and can take them to, oh, by the way, a championship series where the thing is decided by the last second of the game. So I think you're right. I think it's time we can actually sit there and look at these two teams in Southern California and look at the strengths and look at the cultures and look at what's going on, and indeed agree that this is a solid, strong rivalry.
No, you're absolutely right. I think the Padres and the Dodgers is a great analogy. But yeah, I'm here to say that we're coming. We are coming.
Nice. We'll just leave it at that. Okay. So there's I'm not going to put this up there. There's a Facebook viewer that I will be able to identify later, but where can we watch it all? I think you're talking about the World Mini Football World Cup. I haven't heard yet. I'll be, as soon as I get information like that, I'll be posting it on MASO Off the Wall and Study on Soccer. Paul Wright, thank you. I can't thank you enough, man. I value our relationship. We've known each other off and on and bounced back and forth, with conversation a number of times. If you go to Study on Soccer YouTube channel, there are a couple of other lengthy conversations that I have with Paul Wright. The only other thing I want to mention, Paul, and the reason why, in fact, the last time we met at Presidio Park, the reason why we did that interview was because you had recently had your number retired by the San Diego Sockers, and you have your banner hanging up in the rafters along with some amazing players. And I just want to throw this out there. That particular vote that went down, that the San Diego Sockers put out publicly for your name to be considered, was with Steve Zungel, Bronco Segota, Victor Noguera, and Fernando Clavijo, and Paul Wright. And Paul Wright won the nomination and your number is up there with Julie V and Kaz Dana and Gene Wilrich, Zoltan Toth, Kevin Crow, Brian Quinn, Ron Newman, and congratulations for that and your 7 championship rings. What a career.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think back to those guys that you said are hanging in the rafters, and I don't believe any of those guys had a vote. I think they were just put in there by the team and the organization. And so I believe this was the first fan vote. And so that just brings me to the fans and why I've done what I've done for all these years and the joy I get. And so I just want to say thank you to the San Diego fans for getting me, for putting me up in the rafters. You guys deserve all the credit. Yes, I was up against some stiff competition, but obviously you guys made the tough decision for the organization, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, and let's be honest. I mean, the Sockers could have taken all 5 of those guys and retired all 5 of those numbers, and nobody would complain. I mean, every one of those people that was in that fan vote election, every single one of them is worthy of being up there. One of the things I'll tell you, one of the arguments that I made during the time, just to let you know, and I may have shared this with you before, but one of the things that I made, and I was pretty public about it at the time, in supporting your election and retirement, number retirement, was that all of the previous numbers that are retired in those rafters are from those original MISL, you could say the heydays, teams. And I felt that it was that you were at least as much of an impact as any of the other guys that you were talking to that were up there in the vote. And what you did, what your name did, is it brought the like we mentioned earlier. I mean, you played for the original, and then you played for all three iterations of the Sockers. Impact, something of a coach on the field, I would have to assume, during those last seasons. And that was one of my big things, other than, of course, the impact player that you are on itself. I thought that bringing a modern, more recent name that the current fans would remember seeing play was a valuable thing.
Yeah, no, I think I think you're right on the
So I've got
nose.
one more. Go ahead.
No, I think that was one of the things that pushed me over the top there. So yeah, and again, I thank the fans, and obviously, if the fans were voting, I'd obviously be in the Hall of Fame too. So it's there's a lot of powers that be that that control those things. So yeah, it is what it is. But again, the fans know what the deal is. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Gabriel Klum says a similar thing. He says here, 7 rings, and the fact that he was with all 3 versions of the Sockers is why I voted for his number to be retired. So, yeah, and like I said before, Paul, you are loved and respected all over this country and this community, and hugely so down here in San Diego. And you're going to be hugely respected and loved in the Empire also, because I guarantee, man, you're going to make an impact on that team, and I'm really excited to see it happen.
I appreciate it, Greg. Thanks for having me. Like I said, we're coming.
All right, man. Thanks so much for your time, P3. I'll be seeing you soon.
All right. Thanks, sir. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.